Well, I do think the Sussex overdrive is unbelievable, but I mean, I don't think that he is going to get back in, which showed that he is very commercially minded, which we'll get into later on, which
Yeah.
makes it impossible for him. And of course, Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain.
Harry and Meghan, the other side, smiling and all the rest of it.
Is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Right.
The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They don't generate any money. And I don't see where she is going from here. I think she has a major problem.
It was Meghan speaking, and now we know it's Meghan speaking again. And so this isn't because the book contains that her brand was in great trouble. American Riviera Orchard, that she had allegedly nicked the idea. She wanted wealth and she wanted fame. And she targeted, there's no doubt she targeted Harry.
There comes a moment when a public image doesn't just crack. It collapses completely. And according to royal biographer Tom BOWER, Meghan Markle crossed that point years ago. For a long time, Meghan built her entire brand around a carefully polished narrative. Stories of personal struggle, emotional wounds, unfair treatment, a world that simply didn't understand her pain. But now, BOWER says the truth has finally caught up. His latest revelations don't expose just a few inconsistencies. They outline what he describes as an entire strategy. A deliberate effort to rewrite the past, to turn sympathy into leverage, and to shape reality into something that sells. According to BOWER, this wasn't accidental storytelling. It was methodical. Timeline edits, emotional framing, selective memory, carefully staged interviews, all designed to position Meghan as the misunderstood heroine. And this time, the evidence hits hard.
And that was very critical because at that moment last year, she was about to promote her Netflix series and didn't want to, firstly, be seen with Harry, and secondly, didn't want to go somewhere where she'd appear cheap or declining. I think that his reputation is somewhat toxic, and I think Invictus is his only lifeline, and that's what she used as a weapon at the time. So there were quite a few things about her personal life. I'll work them into another book, I think. Meghan didn't like the surname Mountbatten Windsor. If you remember, in her first lifestyle series.
BOWER claims Meghan didn't merely stretch the truth, she redefined it. Royal proximity was turned into profit. Support systems were erased from the story. Allies were quietly written out. And whenever her choices backfired, the narrative shifted. Blame outward, victimhood inward. Now, he says, that pattern is finally collapsing. The public isn't buying the same storyline anymore. The charm is fading. The illusion is slipping. The brand, once marketed as unstoppable, is visibly cracking. BOWER calls this the breaking point, the moment where illusion collides with reality. And once the mask comes off, he says, there's no putting it back on.
Forever. She says to Carling that her surname isn't Markle, but Sussex. And she was desperate to get it. She said, we never had a proper surname. And of course they did.
By not telling the palace what she's going to do. And I think the most interesting story is the Reitman story. Reitman's is like a Marks and Spencer's in Canada.
In Revenge, you talk about how Meghan's lack of knowledge about British history meant she could not understand that Diana had won the public's affection.
She was warned before she married what the nature of being Harry's wife and part of the royal family would be, and the nature of how she ignored all that advice for two reasons. One is she really did believe she could do what she wanted. And secondly, I don't believe she ever intended to stay. She always intended to take the title.
Today, we're breaking down exactly what Tom BOWER has just revealed and why it's shaking everything Meghan has built. Because Tom BOWER isn't a casual commentator. He isn't speculating from the sidelines. He's the man powerful institutions genuinely fear. For decades, BOWER has gone where others wouldn't, interviewing the people who stayed silent, exposing hypocrisy at the highest levels, tearing through polished PR facades like paper. His track record is brutal. His books on prime ministers, billionaires, and royals have left reputations in ruins. And here's the detail many forget. Meghan and Harry never sued him. Not once. For a couple known for legal threats over headlines, jokes, tweets, and even satire, their silence toward BOWER speaks volumes. Why? Because BOWER doesn't bluff. He documents.
Understood, probably not even now, is that when she was cheered as a working royal, It wasn't because she was Meghan Markle. It was because she represented British royalty. Number of times she was warned before she married what the nature of being Harry's wife and part of the royal family would be, and the nature of how she ignored all that advice for two reasons. One is
She interviews staff, aides, friends, insiders, the people they hoped history would forget. He brings receipts, timelines, witness statements, hard contradictions. He doesn't rely on emotion or exaggeration. His power comes from facts, cold, organized, relentless. When BOWER says something isn't true, he isn't guessing. He's showing documents. That's why his new statements hit like a thunderclap. This isn't gossip, BOWER says. It's confirmation. Confirmation of what critics have whispered for years. According to BOWER, the true breaking point came when Meghan attempted to monetize Queen Elizabeth II's personal childhood nickname, a move he calls one of the lowest actions the Sussexes ever took. Here's what BOWER claims.
She doesn't want to be poor. And then having got all that, she then saw how she needed a consort, a husband who was going to take her to the next stage. And she was on a manhunt, there's no doubt. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being on a manhunt. There are women hunts too, but I mean, she was...
Meghan and Harry had already purchased domain names connected to Lilibet before informing the Queen about their daughter's name. Let that sink in. A deeply personal nickname, used only by the Queen's parents, her husband, and her closest inner circle, was turned into a branding asset before the family was even informed. BOWER says this crossed a line the public couldn't ignore when Harry later claimed permission had been granted. The palace quietly pushed back, not through gossip, but directly through the BBC. The message was simple. He didn't ask. He announced. The Queen was reportedly upset.
Why she turned up. So I think she has a major problem, financially and professionally. And I think that Harry has a problem create her own brand and image in the whole Netflix series of lifestyle series. She was told she had to give up being the wicked witch in terms of the royal family. She should put that all behind her and not mention them because people want to see her, not all the time complaining. She couldn't resist because in the end, one of Meghan's many deficiencies is she has nothing to say. There's no reason.
The palace's decision to contradict Harry publicly, something they almost never do, signaled just how undeniable the evidence was. Then came the twist. Harry's team allegedly attempted to pressure the BBC into retracting the report, even hinting at legal action. But the palace refused to intervene. They told the BBC to stand firm, no apology, no walkback. What we said is true, was the tone. Cold, firm, final. According to BOWER, this was the moment the illusion of harmony shattered completely. Not a misunderstanding, not miscommunication, but a clear signal of how Meghan and Harry viewed the monarchy, not as family, but as a marketing opportunity. And from there, credibility began collapsing piece by piece. If there's one area that best illustrates Meghan's pattern of rewriting reality, BOWER insists, it's her relationship with her own father, not because it's emotional, but because the facts don't match the fairy tale.
Always has to fight for a place. She has to fight for the spotlight. She has to fight to be seen, and being seen is critical to her. And, she can't, if there's another shooting, she can't fly there as she did.
Not because it's painful, but because...
Meghan described a childhood of struggle. Cheap meals, salad bars, feeling abandoned, but BOWER's research paints a very different picture. In reality, Thomas Markle paid for everything. Elite private schools, ballet lessons, acting classes, designer clothing. A lifestyle most families could only dream of. He drove her to auditions, supported her career, paid for college.
I don't want to do that. And the other thing is, I've done nothing wrong. There's nothing that points me and says I'm a bad guy. As a matter of fact, I'm a really loving father, and she knows that. And there's no excuse for her to treat me this way. No excuse to treat the king that way as well.
Hardship narrative, BOWER says, simply didn't exist the way it was told. Then came one of his most shocking discoveries, the famous Procter & Gamble soap commercial story, Meghan's origin tale of activism. According to BOWER, there is no evidence, no letter, no response. No record that the event unfolded the way she described. Even her own father admitted he never mailed such a letter. BOWER argues that Meghan began reshaping her relationship with her father only when he no longer fit the image she wanted to project. The tone changed. The story shifted. The supportive parent became an inconvenience. BOWER doesn't call this confusion, he calls it branding. And then came the moment that cracked everything wide open. The Oprah Winfrey interview, a globally broadcast confession designed to frame Meghan and Harry as victims of a cold, cruel institution.
City colleges of America, Northwestern, because of her education and background. So by no means anything other than a happy childhood, although a broken family.
Tom BOWER.
But when the public started fact-checking, the story unraveled fast. BOWER identifies 17 documented inaccuracies, not slip-ups, but contradictions. One of the biggest, the claim that Meghan and Harry were secretly married 3 days before the royal wedding. The timeline made it impossible. Even the Archbishop of Canterbury confirmed it never happened. No backyard ceremony, no hidden vows, just a story. Then came the allegation that shook the world, or the racial insinuation. Meghan suggested a senior royal had questioned Archie's skin tone.
They're not allowed to come to the dinner after the wedding. I mean, people whom he'd known for years. And even at the wedding of Tommy Inskip in Jamaica, one of the parents who was there told me that Meghan had behaved appallingly. They just couldn't understand why Harry was going out with her. She didn't like the food.
Explosive. But BOWER says the context was twisted. According to him, Meghan linked that claim to Archie's lack of a royal title, implying discrimination. But the two were never connected. Royal protocols governing titles existed long before Meghan entered the family. Archie was not entitled to a princely title, and it had nothing to do with race. BOWER argues this tactic, emotionally linking unrelated facts, was part of a larger pattern. It generated outrage, sympathy, headlines, but not truth. And that, he says, is how the narrative finally began to collapse. Not through scandal, but through fact-checking. And we're only getting started.
Do you think that the Australian trip turned their head in a crazy way, although she behaved appallingly during the trip?
Yeah.
But in Harry's view, this was his mother all over again. What Meghan never really understood, probably not even...
According to Tom BOWER, palace records tell a completely different story, one that directly contradicts what millions heard on television. BOWER says internal logs show Meghan Markle had consistent access to staff, medical professionals, and formal support structures whenever she requested them. The image presented to the public, isolated, abandoned, left to suffer alone, simply did not match the behind-the-scenes reality. According to BOWER, the Oprah interview didn't expose the royal family. It exposed Meghan herself, and that's where he takes us back to what he calls the real turning point: Australia. On the surface, the Australia tour looked like a fairy tale. Massive crowds, glowing headlines, iconic photos. The world believed Meghan had cemented her place in royal history. But BOWER says what unfolded behind the scenes was something entirely different.
Today, about Charles lying, about William screaming and shouting, was in the can, was being edited, and they duplicitly did not reveal.
Multiple palace insiders speaking independently described chaos, emotional volatility, demands, and behavior that shocked experienced royal staff. According to these accounts, Meghan behaved less like a royal representative and more like a Hollywood celebrity expecting red carpet treatment. Plans were changed at the last minute. Aides were snapped at. Staff were reportedly left shaken by her intensity. One incident, involving a teacup being thrown on, became infamous among those present, not because of the object, but because of what it symbolized. A complete mismatch between royal duty and personal expectations. BOWER argues that moment revealed everything.
And what I really thought at the end of it as well was this, which I think is a very, very pertinent point. When they came across for the Queen's funeral, and there was that amazing scene outside the castle of meeting the well-wishers in the walk, there was always talk of reconciliation. Mm-hmm. Charles and William and Kate go one side, Harry and Meghan the other side.
But what truly deepened the fracture, he says, was psychological. Meghan believed the crowds were cheering for her alone, that she had already reached Diana-level adoration, that she was the star, the main event. Then reality hit. No matter what she did, she would always rank below Prince William and Catherine. Not because of jealousy, not because of bias, but because of royal hierarchy, a system centuries older than her. BOWER says that realization changed everything. That was the moment Meghan stopped seeing herself as part of the institution and started planning her exit from it. According to BOWER, this is when the long game began. Long before Netflix, long before Oprah, long before public tears or accusations. The escape plan wasn't emotional, it was strategic. Then BOWER drops what he calls one of the most shocking betrayals of all. One that happened before the public ever suspected anything. While millions around the world watched Queen Elizabeth II's funeral hoping for unity and reconciliation, BOWER claims Meghan and Prince Harry had already recorded their Netflix material. Not outlines, not ideas. Fully recorded, edited, locked. So when Harry and Meghan stood beside William and Catherine outside Windsor Castle, grieving, composed, united, the image stunned the world. But behind that image, BOWER says, was something far colder. What William didn't know, what the public didn't know, was that hours of footage already existed, footage filled with accusations, resentment, and deeply personal grievances aimed at the very people standing beside them. BOWER calls it calculated deception. Harry shook hands with mourners, comforted crowds, while knowing his voice was already on tape accusing his own family of cruelty and emotional harm. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't grief spilling over. According to BOWER, it was strategy. And shockingly, BOWER claims Harry had done this before, during Prince Philip's funeral, smiling for cameras, showing respect, while privately preparing another wave of revelations. But this time it hit harder, because it wasn't just monarchy versus Harry. It was timing. It was grief. It was standing at his grandmother's funeral while the next public attack was already finalized. BOWER's verdict is brutal. This wasn't heartbreak, he says. It was duplicity. And his revelations go further. According to BOWER, Meghan's entire public identity has been built on transformation, carefully shifting personas, polished symbolism, emotional storytelling crafted to elevate her image at every stage. He doesn't call it confidence. He calls it construction. BOWER claims Meghan had been modeling herself after Princess Diana long before the public noticed. From wardrobe choices, to jewelry, to soft-spoken vulnerability, to camera angles. Even the misunderstood woman narrative, BOWER says, followed Diana's emotional blueprint. It wasn't coincidence. It was imitation, dressed up as destiny. Then came one of his most explosive claims yet. BOWER says Meghan and Harry allegedly approached Charles Spencer with a stunning request. They asked to use the Spencer surname as their family name, not symbolically, not privately, as a public identity. According to BOWER, Meghan didn't want Mountbatten Windsor. She felt it didn't fit her children or her brand. She wanted Spencer, a name heavy with emotion, tragedy, global recognition, Diana's legacy. But Charles Spencer refused, immediately and firmly. BOWER interprets that refusal as a warning. The Spencer family wanted no part of Meghan's ambitions or the scandals that might follow. They didn't want their name tied to controversy, or a marriage insiders already doubted would last. According to BOWER, this wasn't about heritage. It was branding. Borrowing Diana's light without embodying what made her beloved: humility, empathy, and genuine public service. BOWER says Meghan's attempts to mirror Diana weren't touching. They were unsettling. And the downfall that followed wasn't sudden. It was slow, public, and increasingly visible. After years of emotional interviews, carefully staged photos, and relentless victim-centered narratives, the world began doing something Meghan never expected. They started fact-checking. Hollywood cooled first. Producers, studios, PR firms quietly stepped back. Invitations stopped. Collaborations froze. Even once friendly outlets shifted tone. Publications like Vanity Fair, The Cut, and The Hollywood Reporter stopped repeating talking points without evidence. Then came the final corporate signal. Spotify publicly ended its podcast deal, bluntly questioning the value. According to Tom BOWER, the fallout didn't stop with headlines. It spread quietly and relentlessly. Future projects were scaled back. Behind closed doors, Netflix cooled completely. Even the couple's charitable work under Archewell began showing visible strain. Donations slowed, engagement dropped, transparency questions piled up, and the public response was brutal. In the United States, approval ratings slid to historic lows. In the UK, they hit rock bottom. In Australia, a country Meghan once believed adored her, polls showed open rejection. BOWER is blunt about this. He says none of it was driven by jealousy. Not racism, not royal conspiracies. It happened because people finally recognized a pattern. Stories that kept changing. Facts bending to fit emotion. Blame placed on everyone except the storyteller herself. Meghan and Harry didn't lose public support overnight. BOWER says they lost it inch by inch, with every inconsistency, every rewritten memory, every contradiction that couldn't be explained away. Each time BOWER released another document, another timeline, another insider account. A little more credibility slipped through their fingers. Now, after years of investigation, his final assessment lands harder than ever. Based on interviews, leaked documents, witness statements, and palace records, BOWER says Meghan Markle has reached a point of no return. The brand she built, he argues, can't be rescued, not by another interview, not by another rebrand, not by another emotional monologue about being misunderstood. Her story has run out of rewrites. The illusion that once fueled global fascination has collapsed under its own weight. What remains isn't mystery, it's exposure. The very narrative that once made her untouchable has become the force tearing everything apart, one fact check at a time. The public has seen too much. The mask hasn't slipped. It's fallen off completely. The contradictions are now impossible to ignore. According to BOWER, Meghan's downfall isn't about one bad headline or one mistake. It's about repetition. Under pressure, she followed the same formula again and again. Rewrite the story, shift the blame, play the victim, attack anyone who refused to validate her version of events. BOWER says what we're witnessing isn't chaotic. It's predictable. The warning signs were flashing for years, but people wanted to believe the story. The emotional performances, the same villains, the same claims. Eventually, even supporters ran out of energy to defend it. Now the cracks aren't cracks anymore. They're fractures, deep, visible, and permanent. BOWER points out this is no longer a PR issue, it's a full-scale collapse. Media deals that once rushed in have dried up completely. The royal bridge is burned beyond repair. Hollywood, once eager, is backing away quietly. Studios, producers, sponsors, they don't want to risk their reputations on a brand now associated with drama and division. The sympathy that once made Meghan powerful has evaporated. The public is tired. The press has moved on. Even the fan base is thinning. The "I was wronged" card, the move used again and again, doesn't work anymore. People have heard it too many times. Now, every emotional appearance feels rehearsed instead of raw. According to BOWER, the formula that once earned empathy has become the reason belief collapsed. It's not heartbreak anymore. It's exhaustion. And then comes BOWER's final blow, the one he says matters most. Meghan's biggest problem isn't the palace. It isn't the public. It isn't even Harry. It's internal. She built a global empire on a version of herself that could not survive the truth. Every time facts surface, another layer peels away. The polished persona fades in real time. BOWER says this is what happens when a brand is built on illusion. Eventually, reality arrives. And when it does, no amount of PR, no glossy interviews, no controlled narratives can stop the damage. Once timelines, witnesses, and receipts contradict the story, the myth has nothing left to protect it. BOWER predicts the next year will be Meghan's most revealing, not because she'll speak again, but because the world will stop listening. Silence, he says, will say more than any interview ever could. For years, Meghan controlled the narrative. Carefully scripted statements, emotional sound bites, sympathy-driven storytelling. That era is over. The public isn't waiting for explanations anymore. They're done. The truth doesn't need to shout. It only needs time. And that time has arrived. The Netflix ambitions, the podcast deals, the invitations. One by one, they're fading. Hollywood thrives on buzz, but it knows when the spotlight turns toxic. Right now, Meghan's brand doesn't inspire. It exhausts. Even former allies are stepping back quietly, not out of cruelty but self-preservation. And once credibility is gone, BOWER says, there is no rebuilding it. The royal family doesn't even need to respond anymore. Silence has become their most effective strategy. Each time Meghan speaks, the public does the fact-checking for them. So where does that leave her now? According to BOWER, the unraveling is accelerating. Each exposed inconsistency, each canceled project, each door quietly closing. The empire built on emotion and controversy continues slipping out of reach. There is no rebrand powerful enough to rewrite what the world has already seen. This isn't just the end of an image. It's the end of an era. A story that once inspired millions now stands as a warning. When fame is built on fiction, truth always finds a way through. So what do you think? Has Meghan finally reached the point of no return? Has the world moved on for good? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you found this breakdown useful. Share this with someone following the royal drama. And subscribe for more deep dives into the stories everyone's talking about. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.